The house is a ship on a dark sea. The hum of the world has fallen away, and all that remains is the shallow sound of your own breathing. The day, with all its noise and its demands, has been put to bed. So why are you still awake? Why does the mind, which has worked so hard, refuse its rest? You can feel it behind the eyes. A flicker, a current of energy that has nowhere to go. In the stillness of the room, a private maelstrom begins. The body lies still, a statue in the sheets, but the mind is a frantic ghost. It replays a conversation from Tuesday. It rehearses a confrontation for Friday. It audits past failures and drafts future anxieties with an architect's precision. Each thought is a drop of black ink in clear water. At first, just a single, dark point. But then it blossoms. It sends out slow, searching tendrils, clouding everything. Another drop follows, and another. Soon the water is opaque, a turbulent darkness where clarity cannot live. You are watching the chaos, and you are the chaos. A hand clenches on a sheet you cannot feel. A muscle in the jaw tightens against a phantom pressure. This is the engine of the soul, running without a governor, threatening to tear itself apart in the search for what? Resolution? Safety? An answer to a question you haven't even formed? You tell yourself to stop, just stop. A simple command, but it is like telling the tide not to turn. The effort to suppress the thoughts only gives them more energy. The struggle to find the switch to turn it all off only illuminates the room with the blinding light of your own frustration. You might even believe this is a failing, a weakness, a sign that you are somehow broken, that your mind is a betrayer in the quiet hours when it is supposed to be a friend. But what if this isn't a flaw? What if this restless, searching, grasping quality of the mind is not a bug, but its most fundamental feature? What if the very same mechanism that fuels this midnight anxiety is also the source of all your love, your ambition, your art, your desire for truth? It is an engine built to move, to seek, to want, to push away. And in the silence of the night, with no world left to push against, it simply pushes against itself. There is a peace to be found here, but it is not found in fighting this engine. It is found in understanding it. It is found in giving it a different kind of work to do. And the map for this work comes to us from a very distant time, from a world lit only by fire and faith. It comes from the mind of a 13th century philosopher, a quiet and meticulous man named Thomas Aquinas. It seems unlikely, I know, that a medieval scholastic, writing in careful Latin by candlelight, could have anything to say to our modern, sleepless nights. But he spent his life creating a blueprint of the human soul, charting its passions, its movements, its sorrows, and its paths to peace. He understood that churning engine inside you. He gave its parts names. He watched it work. And he left behind, in his dense and beautiful books, a set of keys, not to shut the machine down, but to guide it gently from a state of contraction and fear toward a state of quiet. He offers us a way to lead the mind home. So let the thoughts come. Let the ink bleed into the water. We will not fight it. We will simply begin. To begin, we must first understand the architecture of the mind itself, not the brain with its synapses and chemicals, but the soul as Aquinas mapped it. Imagine, on a dark piece of parchment, a diagram beginning to draw itself in lines of soft light. This is not a single, unified field. It is a territory of different powers, a layered kingdom within you. And the most fundamental forces in this kingdom, the engines that drive every action and every feeling, are what Aquinas called the appetites. The word sounds simple, almost primitive, but it holds a key. An appetite is the soul's inclination, its natural leaning towards something it perceives as good. It is the orientation of the self toward the world. We are not neutral observers. We are beings of desire and aversion, constantly in motion. The storm of overthinking is born here, in the nature of these appetites. Let's draw them. First, there is the sensitive appetite. This is the part of you that responds to what your senses perceive, the immediate, felt world. It is the animal self within the human self, and it is the source of our passions. Aquinas, in his meticulous way, saw that even this was not one simple thing. He divided it into two. The first power he called the concupiscible appetite. Picture it as a simple, primal vector, a movement either towards a simple, achievable good or away from a simple, present evil. It is the desire for the pleasure of warmth, the taste of food, the feeling of rest. It is the aversion to pain, to cold, to a sudden loud noise. It is the part of you that simply wants the good of sleep and wants to move away from the discomfort of being awake. It is pure, uncomplicated impulse. But what happens when the good you seek is difficult to attain, or when the evil you face is not easily avoided? What happens when there is an obstacle? This is where the second, more volatile power ignites. Aquinas called this the irascible appetite. This is the soul's fighting power. It engages not with simple goods, but with arduous ones. It is the engine of struggle. It gives you hope to strive for something difficult, and courage to withstand an attack. But it is also the source of your fear in the face of a future evil, and your despair when that evil seems insurmountable. The concupiscible appetite says, "I want to sleep." The irascible appetite, facing the obstacle of a racing mind, says, "I am afraid I will never sleep." And in that space between want and fear, the storm begins. These two powers, desire and struggle, are the source of the turbulence. But they are not the whole of you. Above them, in this luminous diagram of the soul, is the third and highest appetite, the intellectual appetite. This is what we call the will. It is the calm sovereign of this inner kingdom. It does not desire sensory things, but abstract rational goods, truth, beauty, justice, understanding. And unlike the sensitive appetites, which are reactive and automatic, the will can choose. It can observe the passions rising from below, assess them, and direct them. It is the faculty that can look upon the churning chaos of fear and desire and decide not to be ruled by it. This is the hidden order beneath your restlessness. It is not random noise. It is the working of a complex and beautiful machine. Your concupiscible appetite longs for the good of rest. Your irascible appetite struggles with the perceived evil of its absence, creating the feeling of anxiety. And your will, your quiet, observing self, is there to witness it all. By understanding this structure, we move from being a victim of the storm to being a student of it. We have named the parts. Now we can begin to see how to bring them into harmony. And the first step toward harmony is to understand the nature of the discord. We must look closely at that feeling which grips you now, the primary passion of the irascible appetite when it faces an obstacle. We must look at fear. And for Aquinas, fear is not a vague cloud of dread. It has a specific shape, a precise movement. He says it is a contraction, a drawing inward of the soul. Think of the world at dusk. As the cold air begins to descend, the petals of a flower, which were open and receptive to the sun all day, begin to fold. They curl inward, one over the other, shielding the delicate heart of the bloom from the coming night. This is a perfect image of what is happening inside you. In the face of a future evil, an imagined failure, a feared loss, the simple looming threat of another sleepless night, your soul does what the flower does. It contracts. It pulls its powers back from the world to protect its core. See it in your own body. It is not just an idea, it is a physical event. A hand, which was lying open and relaxed on the sheet, slowly, unconsciously, closes into a fist. The muscles are not preparing to strike anything real. They are simply responding to the soul's internal command to shrink, to gather, to defend. You can feel this contraction in the shallowing of your breath as your lungs refuse to expand fully. You feel it as a tightness in the chest, a gathering knot in the stomach. These are the physical echoes of a spiritual motion. The soul is pulling away from a danger that exists only in thought, but the body, its faithful partner, registers the retreat as a physical reality. This is the profound genius of Aquinas' insight. Anxiety is not just a thought pattern, it is a physiological posture of the soul itself. It is like water on the verge of freezing. When the temperature drops, the molecules, which had been moving freely, begin to slow down. They draw closer together, arranging themselves into a rigid, crystalline structure. Their expansive, fluid energy is arrested, locked into a state of immobility. This is what your overthinking mind is doing. It is taking the free-flowing energy of the appetites and, through the cold of fear, freezing it into obsessive, circular patterns. The energy is not gone. It is simply trapped. It cannot flow outward into peaceful sleep, so it turns inward, creating an immense internal pressure. It grinds against itself, a glacier moving millimeters at a time, carving canyons of worry inside you. This is the great demystification. The chaos you feel is not chaos at all. It is a highly ordered, protective, and deeply natural response. Your soul is contracting because it perceives a threat. It is clenching, like a fist, because the irascible appetite believes it must guard itself against a difficult future evil. It is freezing like water because it does not see a path forward. There is a deep mechanical logic to your anxiety, and by seeing it not as a monstrous anomaly, but as a simple physical motion, a contraction, we find the first clue to its remedy. For if fear is a tightening, a shrinking, a drawing inward, then peace must be found in the opposite motion. It must be a gentle loosening, an unfurling, a release, an expansion, and Aquinas, in his wisdom, knew that this expansion does not begin with an act of will, but with an act of grace towards the self. It begins with something very simple. It begins with pleasure. But this idea is met with immediate resistance. The overthinking mind, the puritanical warden of its own suffering, scoffs. Pleasure? Now? It feels like a betrayal of the seriousness of the problem. It feels like an indulgence, a distraction from the urgent work of worrying. The anxious soul believes it must earn its rest by solving the unsolvable puzzle that keeps it awake. It believes that to turn away from the knot of fear, even for a moment, is an act of profound irresponsibility. The contracted mind insists that the only way out is to think its way out, to grind harder, to wrestle the phantom to the ground through sheer force of will. But this is the core of the trap. And this is where Aquinas, with a gentle and radical wisdom, offers the first remedy for your sorrow. He prescribes pleasure as medicine, not as a reward, but as a direct and necessary antidote to the soul's contraction. He understood that a soul weary from the weight of a perceived evil cannot be argued into peace. It must be lured. It must be softened. Consider the feeling of a heavy wool blanket being drawn up to your shoulders. There is a weight to it, a gentle pressure that is the opposite of the sharp, internal clenching of anxiety. It does not demand anything of you. It simply offers a different kind of sensation, a sensation of being held, of being secure. Or think of the steam rising in a slow, hypnotic spiral from a cup of hot tea. To watch it is to participate in a movement of ascent. To feel its warmth in your hands is to introduce a small, local sun into the cold landscape of your fear. Aquinas saw that every sorrow is a kind of weariness of the soul. It is exhausting to be afraid. It drains the spirit. Pleasure, he says, is its contrary motion. It is a form of rest. It is a quiet, restorative movement of the soul toward a present and simple good. The anxious mind is fixed on a future evil. The gentle pleasure of a candle's glow, the soft texture of worn linen, the faint scent of chamomile, these things are not in the future. They are here, now, and they are undeniably good. By attending to them, you are gently retraining the appetite. You are showing it that there is a good to be found in this present moment, a reality more immediate and more true than the catastrophe it is rehearsing. This is not an act of avoidance. It is a strategic retreat to a place of strength. You are not ignoring the battle. You are tending to your wounds so that you may have the fortitude not to fight at all. Aquinas understood the profound union of the body and the soul. He knew that the spirit is not an abstract ghost floating in a machine, but is deeply, inextricably bound to the flesh. A soul cannot unfurl if the body remains a tense knot of apprehension. The remedies must therefore begin where we live, in our senses. This is his profound permission to stop striving and instead to simply receive, to allow a small, legitimate sensory good to enter the fortress of your mind. It is a counterweight. For every sharp-edged analytical thought, there is the round, soft reality of a comfortable warmth. This act is the beginning of the great loosening. It is the first warmth applied to the frozen water, allowing the molecules to once again move with a gentle freedom. It does not solve the problem your mind is obsessed with, and that is its genius. It reminds the soul that your well-being is not contingent on solving that problem right now. Your peace can begin here, in this small, quiet, and deliberate act of kindness to yourself. But sometimes, that small kindness is not enough. The pressure within remains. A gentle warmth on the surface cannot always reach the deep, frozen core of the contraction. The knot in the soul is pulled too tight, and no amount of simple pleasure can persuade it to loosen. The sorrow, the fear, has a weight and a mass of its own, and it demands not to be soothed, but to be expelled. For this, Aquinas offers his second remedy, and like the first, it feels like a paradox, a contradiction to the struggling will. He gives you permission to weep. This is not a surrender to despair. It is not an admission of defeat in the face of the overwhelming thoughts. In the Thomistic universe, it is a profoundly logical and therapeutic act, a strategic release. He saw that sorrow, when held inside, congeals. It stagnates and sours the spirit. It is a harmful thing, and the soul, like the body, has a wisdom for expelling what harms it. Tears are not the sorrow itself. They are the soul's physical rejection of it. They are the means by which an internal injury is allowed an exit. Picture a window pane on a quiet, humid night. The air is heavy. Inside you are warm. Outside the world is cool. And on the surface of the glass, a transformation begins. The unseen moisture in the air gathers, condenses, becoming visible, first as a faint haze, then as tiny, distinct droplets. As they grow heavier, they begin to move, tracing slow, clean paths down the glass, taking the dust and grime of the day with them. This is the movement of tears. It is the body's alchemy, turning a formless, internal ache into a physical substance that can be released. The weeping is not a storm. It is a gentle, steady process of externalization. It prevents the pain from remaining trapped within, where it can do its unseen damage. It allows the harmful thing to be moved from the inside to the outside, where it can finally evaporate. What injures us when it is retained, Aquinas says, is beneficial when it is let go. Think of the river. The contracted soul is a block of ice, its energy frozen, its motion arrested. To weep is to allow the thaw. It is to let the rigid, static pain dissolve back into flowing water, and the nature of a river is to move. It does not hoard the silt or the fallen leaves that find their way into its current. It carries them onward, downstream, away. The act of weeping is the soul remembering its own fluid nature. It is a physical exertion, a shuddering release that breaks the rigid posture of fear, and in its wake it leaves a strange and holy quiet, a clean exhaustion. The storm of the mind, which could not be fought with more thoughts, is instead answered by the deep, ancient wisdom of the body. In the release of tears, there is a profound relief, a catharsis that leaves the inner landscape washed clean, ready for a different kind of quiet to settle. It is the soul's own gentle rain falling in the darkness, letting go. The clean landscape of the soul, washed by its own rain, is a quiet place, but it can also be a lonely one. The pressure has been released, the storm has passed, but you are left standing in a vast and silent territory. The sorrow, now externalized, has left a void, and in this vulnerable quiet, the overthinking mind can begin its work again, seeking to refill the emptiness with new anxieties. The soul, having contracted in fear and then released in tears, now needs something else. It needs not just to be empty of pain, but to be filled with comfort. It needs to know it is not alone in the dark. And so Aquinas offers his third remedy, the sympathy of friends. This is not a call for advice. It is not a search for a solution. The anxious mind has already tried every solution and found it wanting. This remedy is far simpler and far more profound. It is based on the Thomistic understanding that sorrow is a burden, a real weight upon the soul, and a weight, when carried by two, is literally lighter for each. When you share your sadness with a friend, you are not merely describing it. You are, in a very real sense, dividing it. Imagine two small orbs of light, two single candles, existing in an infinite dark room. Each one illuminates its own small circle, holding back the immense blackness by itself. But when they begin to drift towards one another, something happens. Their individual halos of light touch, overlap and merge, creating a single shared space that is warmer and brighter than either could produce alone. They have not lost their individuality, but they are no longer solitary points in the void. They are a constellation of two. This is the movement of sympathy. Your friend, by listening, by understanding, takes on a part of your sorrow as their own. It becomes their burden too, if only for a moment. And in that act of compassionate reception, the original weight is halved. The friend does not need to speak. They do not need to fix the unfixable thing that keeps you awake. Their presence is the remedy. It is the silent testament that your suffering is real, that it is seen, and that it is bearable. Think of two figures sitting in near darkness, the space between them filled not with anxious words, but with a comfortable shared silence. One person's hands are knotted on their lap, the others are resting, open, nearby. The quiet communion says what words cannot. You are not carrying this alone. I am here with you. The weight of this night rests on two pairs of shoulders now. This is the great secret that anxiety tries to hide from you. It insists on solitude. It convinces you that your internal struggle is a private shame, a labyrinth that only you can navigate. It isolates you, making the world outside the bedroom door seem distant and inaccessible. But Aquinas asserts that healing is found in connection. The burden that feels impossibly heavy in the echo chamber of your own mind becomes manageable when another soul willingly puts their hand to it. The friend becomes a mirror, but a compassionate one. They reflect back to you not the chaos of your thoughts, but the simple human dignity of your sorrow. And in their gaze, you find a security that your own mind, trapped in its loops of fear, could never provide. You find a quiet harbor, a place of human warmth against the cold immensity of the night. And yet, sometimes, even that human harbor feels like a small dock on the edge of an infinite ocean. The warmth of a friend can hold you, but it cannot shrink the immensity of the night itself. In its darkest moments, your sorrow can feel so absolute, so vast, that it seems to be the only reality. The mind, in its contracted state, has made a universe out of its own pain. For this, Aquinas offers his most sublime and radical remedy. When the soul is trapped in the small, hot room of its own private suffering, the cure is to throw open the window, to unlatch the door, and to step out into the cosmos. This is his fourth remedy, the contemplation of truth. This is not a dry academic exercise, it is a deliberate act of rescaling your sorrow. The overthinking mind is obsessed with the subjective, the personal, the story in which you are the tragic protagonist. Contemplation of truth invites the mind to rest in what is objective, eternal, and serenely indifferent to that story. It is a call to lift your gaze from the tangled sheets of your own narrative and to look upward, to see the great, slow river of the Milky Way flowing through the silence, a river of 100 billion suns, each one a testament to a scale of time and energy that renders our most pressing anxieties into microscopic events. Before this awesome silent reality, what is the argument you replayed from last Tuesday? What is the meeting you fear for next week? The problems do not vanish, but they find their true size. They become what they have always been, a flicker of dust in a cathedral of light. Or consider the mountains. Watch in your mind's eye as the clouds, in their silent, patient procession, are born on one peak and dissolve against another. The rock beneath them has witnessed epochs of this same gentle movement. It has felt the grinding of glaciers and the heat of ancient suns. Your anxiety, which feels so permanent and solid in the dead of night, is, against this time scale, less than a single breath of mist on the cold surface of the stone. This is the profound peace of objective truth. It is the relief of discovering that your problem, as all-consuming as it feels, is not the center of the universe. There is an order to things that is vaster, more intricate and more beautiful than your own inner chaos. Look at the perfect six-fold symmetry of a single snowflake, a unique crystal formed by unthinking laws of physics. Consider the elegant logarithmic spiral of a nautilus shell, a mathematical formula made incarnate by the quiet pressures of the deep sea. These are not accidents. They are whispers of a deep logic, a serene and underlying grammar to all of existence. To contemplate these things is to give the intellectual appetite, the will, its proper food. The will does not ultimately desire comfort, it desires truth. And when you feed it this cosmic, impersonal, beautiful truth, you draw the energy of the soul upward, away from the churning fears and circular arguments of the lower appetites. You are not suppressing your anxiety, you are transcending it. You are allowing the soul to expand to its proper dimension, to breathe an air that is clear and cold and infinite. And in that silent, majestic expansion, you find a perspective so profound it borders on peace. You find awe, but awe in its own way is an exertion. The soul has expanded to the edges of the universe, and it returns to the small room of the self, weary from the journey. The mind has been fed a great truth, but the body has been lying here all along, a faithful animal waiting for its own kind of peace. And here, in this final movement, Thomas Aquinas reveals the depth of his humane and practical wisdom. After leading us through the high corridors of metaphysics and the intricate passageways of the soul, he offers his fifth and final remedy for sorrow. And it is the simplest of all. It is a surrender. It is sleep and baths. It sounds almost comically mundane, an anticlimax after the contemplation of the cosmos. But in this prescription lies a profound truth about who we are. For Aquinas, you are not a soul trapped in a body. You are an embodied soul, a unified creature. Your spirit is not a pilot in a machine, it is the life of the very flesh it inhabits. And just as the passions of the soul can knot the muscles of the body, so too can the restoration of the body bring tranquility to the soul. He understood that the vital spirits, the very energies of life, become scattered and agitated by the work of sorrow. A warm bath, he says, has a simple physical effect. It brings that scattered energy back to the heart. It recenters the body's life force, and in doing so, quiets the mind that it supports. Imagine this gentle surrender. See the soft, hypnotic ripples spreading outward in a dark pool of water from a single, quiet touch. This is the effect of warmth on the tense body. It is a dissolution. Where fear created a rigid, crystalline structure, the warm water invites a loosening, a letting go. The steam that rises is a visible breath, a slow exhalation of the day's accumulated tension. It is a physical permission slip to soften, to release the grip you did not even know you were holding. In this simple, creaturely act, you are not fighting your thoughts. You are changing the very physical conditions that give them their frantic energy. You are tending to the animal self so that the rational self may find its quiet. And then there is sleep. Sleep, for Aquinas, is the great restorer. It is a remedy of absolute surrender. It is the final acknowledgement that you cannot think your way to peace, because it is the thinking itself that has become the enemy. To fall asleep is to consent to the temporary cessation of the very faculties that are causing you pain. The irascible appetite, with its fears and its struggles, is suspended. The intellect, with its relentless analysis, is put to rest. During sleep, he says, the vital energies are no longer drawn outward to the senses and the world, but retreat inward to the core of your being to perform the deep, silent work of restoration. Watch the flame of a single candle flickering in a dark room. It is alive, but it does not strive. It simply is. It consumes the wax and wick, and it gives light and warmth, and its movement is a hypnotic dance of becoming and unbecoming. This is the state the soul seeks in sleep, not an oblivion, but a quiet, living process, a necessary descent into the dark, generative soil of your own being, so that you may be renewed. This final remedy is an act of profound humility. It is the admission that, after all our striving, the deepest healing often comes when we simply get out of our own way. It is the wisdom of allowing the body to lead the soul home, to a place of silent, dreamless, and restorative peace. It is permission at last to stop. But to stop is not to be dead. The rest you have found is a fallow field, not a barren one. The mind's nature is to move, to know, to seek. That energy will return, a quiet spring bubbling up from the ground you have so carefully prepared. And so the final question is not how to keep the engine off, but how to direct its power when it inevitably starts again. Left to itself, the mind will revert to its old habits. It will begin again its frantic, aimless searching, a flicker of thought about work, a jolt of memory, a phantom conversation. This is the great temptation of the rested soul, to immediately squander its new energy. Aquinas had a name for this. He called it curiositas. It is not true curiosity, but a vice of the intellect. It is the mind as a hungry ghost, flitting from one object to another without purpose or nourishment. It is the desire to know, but for the wrong reasons, to distract, to feel superior, to feed anxiety with new material. It is the mind that chases the 10,000 glittering dust motes that dance in any stray beam of light, never once resting on the source of the light itself. This frantic chase only agitates the soul further, scattering the very energies you have just gathered. It is a return to chaos. But Aquinas presents an alternative, a virtue he called studiositas, studiousness. The word sounds humble, academic, perhaps even dull, but it is a powerful tool for the ordering of the soul. It is the decision to give the mind's restored energy a single worthy task. It is the practice of applying the intellect with moderation and purpose, not to the thorny, unsolvable knot of the self, but to an external, ordered truth. Imagine a quill held in a steady hand, touching a blank sheet of parchment. It does not slash or scribble in a frenzy. It draws one clean, continuous line. This is the motion of the studious mind. It is the application of its full power to one thing at a time, with measure, with order, and with a quiet love for the knowledge it seeks. This virtue reframes your entire problem. Your restless mind is not a curse. It is a sign of a powerful intellect that has been given a trivial or a toxic job to do. It has been tasked with solving the unsolvable, with preventing the unpreventable. Studiousness takes that magnificent restless engine and gives it different work. It asks it not to worry about you, but to inquire about something else, to turn the pages of a book slowly, allowing the meaning to settle, to learn the name of a single constellation in the vast night sky, to follow the logic of a simple geometric proof. These acts are a balm for the agitated mind. They are not distractions in the way curiositas is. They are redirections. They teach your mind a new rhythm, a tempo of calm inquiry that is the direct opposite of the frantic beat of anxiety. The object of your study can be anything, so long as it is outside the narrow circle of your own worries. In studying it, you give the will a noble object to desire, understanding, and you give the intellect a clean path to walk upon. This is the final gentle judo of the soul. You do not block the mind's energy, you yield to it and guide it onto a more peaceful course. You channel the river of your thought away from the circular whirlpool of self-concern and into a deep, straight channel that flows toward a sea of quiet understanding. You are not killing the engine, you are simply at last learning how to steer, and so you see the path from chaos to quiet. The swirling dark ink of your thoughts, which once clouded everything, begins to settle. The remedies are not a frantic checklist, but a set of gentle permissions. Permission to feel pleasure, to weep, to find a friend, to contemplate truth, and finally, to simply rest. These are not commands, but ancient keys offered to help you unlock the contracted heart and let the quiet in.